Hi, I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Kris Kuyper, and in the Central Valley, the fogmageddon continues for us. More gloomy, murky, cloudy, cold weather for us in the valley. You get outside the valley, it's been beautiful sunshine. That's more or less going to continue through the week and into early next week, although we may finally start to break out of it as we get towards about a week away from now, next weekend or so. Looking at a satellite picture here of the state of California, beautiful sunshine in the Sierra Nevada, lots of sun on the coastline as well. In the Central Valley, we're dealing with the fog. Here's that big layer of fog, low clouds of stratus and fog stretching from Bakersfield in the south all the way to Redding in the north. And it's been present here for over 2 weeks now. And it's going to continue off and on through the weekend, it looks like, as well. Here, let's take a look at a couple of Alert California cameras, so the wildfire cameras in the summer, which double as fog cameras in the wintertime here. This is from the Los Banos Reservoir here, the San Luis Reservoir near Los Banos. And you see the fog kind of ebbing and flowing across the reservoir there. And notice the top of the fog layer here. It's just a very sharp top. It's not a diffuse top, not a loose top like we typically see with a lot of clouds out there, like a big puffy cumulus cloud has those kind of like a cauliflower and such. This one's just a solid flat line there, which is a little bit unusual. Why is that? That's because we have something called an inversion going on here, and that prevents the fog from climbing any higher in elevation here. So what is an inversion here? That's key for this fog to be happening. That's a situation where we have warm air over cold air here. Now let me show you here on the, let me show you what an inversion is here. We could diagram it out here and show you what we've got going on. And that's, again, it has a lot to do with us where we happen to live. We are in a beautiful area. We're surrounded by beautiful mountains. That comes back to get us, though, in the form of this inversion here, because it's able to trap the air very effectively by the Sierra Nevada, by the Tehachapi Mountains down to the south, by the Coast Range over towards the west of us as well. So we're almost in a bowl. We have mountains on three sides of us here. Then we have high pressure above, and that's pushing all the air down towards the surface. And we end up in this situation where we have, again, warm air over cold air. That is a very stable situation. That's just like grandpa in the easy chair after a big dinner or so. It's not going to move at all. And that's exactly what we have going on. And so all this air is just trapped, all this moist air is trapped down here towards the surface. We get stuck in the fog here. You get above that little inversion layer where the temperature starts to warm a little bit with high air, and then we get some very warm temperatures up in the higher elevations. This is what we call an atmospheric sounding. And we're going to look at the temperature as we go up in the levels of the atmosphere here. Here's the surface of the ground right there. We got way down on the ground there. And this morning we were down to about 40 degrees in Fresno. Didn't make it to the 30s. 40 was our overnight low. This red line here, that's the air temperature. This green line is what we call the dew point. That's a little bit of a measure of how moist the air is. And we have them right next to each other like that. That's a saturated air mass. That's where the humidity is 100%. That's our fog layer there, right there. Now, when you climb up in the atmosphere, usually it starts to cool on down. That's why there's snow at the peaks of the Sierra Nevada or any other mountain range that's sufficiently tall enough and such. Not for us, though. Again, we have that warm air on top of cold air, that inversion. And here you see that temperature, instead of cooling as it goes up in the atmosphere, it warms as it goes up in the atmosphere. And also notice the dew point, it gets really dry after a little while there. So we have this very dry and warm layer of air on top of this cold, moist layer of air. Again, that's very stable, and it just doesn't want to move. And that's our inversion out there. So the temperatures stay static. Everything just stays where it is. You need something to really come on in and whoosh it out, some big wind or a big storm or something like that to happen, and that'll break us out of it. But until that happens, we're going to stay in this weather pattern here for a while longer. Now, a lot of moisture down here, lower levels of the atmosphere. Even though we haven't had any rain in the month of December, it's been awfully dry out there. Haven't had a drop here in Fresno, but that's okay because we had so much rain back in October, back in November as well. Even though December has been nothing as far as rain goes, we're still 200%, 202% of normal for us for this time of the year because we had so much rain back in October and November. So that's allowed us to form that fog, and it's just been staying put here for us. In December, it's been actually often pretty warm here across the west. We're looking at a map now of temperatures for the beginning of December compared to what they normally are for the beginning of December. And all across the west, it's been warm. Everybody's been enjoying the warm weather, except for this one little area here, the Central Valley, where it's been much below normal temperatures. Boy, the Sierra Nevada has much above normal temperatures. Washington and Oregon, they've been warm as well until the atmospheric rivers came recently. But in the Central Valley, we've had nothing but clouds and fog, and that has kept our temperatures way below average for this time of the year. This is what it did on Friday, but this is a snapshot of pretty much the past 2 weeks or so. High temperatures temperatures in the San Joaquin Valley well below average for this time of the year, mostly 40s. You get to the mountains and it warms up. That's kind of the backward situation. 49 for a high temperature in Fresno on Friday, whereas Oakhurst, what is that? Boy, do the math in your head. It was 27 degrees warmer than it was in Fresno. Oh my goodness, that is dramatically warmer up there. Even Shaver Lake. Shaver Lake is over 5,000 feet in elevation, and they were 19 degrees warmer than it was down here at sea level. So again, here's your atmospheric conversion. Warm air over cold, very stable situation. And speaking of stability, how's this for stability? The temperature in Fresno has been in the 40s all day long today, all day long yesterday. In fact, for the past 253 hours, that's about a week and a half, our temperatures in Fresno have not left the 40s. Lows, highs, everything else in between has been in the 40s. Very consistent temperatures here for us in that past week and a half. We've had this fog bank out there, and that the level of clouds out there has been deflecting the sunlight as it comes on in and just keeping our temperatures steady as she goes in the 40s here. So through 8 o'clock Friday evening, over a week and a half of steady 40-degree temperatures. Not just Fresno, Madera is also working on a little bit of streak, not quite as long, but still about a week's worth of temperatures staying in the 40s. The low temperatures in the 40s, the high temperatures in the 40s, obviously everything else in between has been in the 40s for Madera as well. You think the fog is bad now? It was bad. It was even worse potentially 30, 40, 50 years ago or so. In the past 30 years, Fresno has averaged about 24 days of dense fog every year. Dense fog is about, it knocks visibility down to about a quarter of a mile or so. Back to 30 years previous to that, 1993, 94 to 1964, 1965, they averaged about 40 days of dense fog every year, almost twice as much. Well, the fog has been thinning out over the past 30 years, although this year certainly seems like it's roaring on back. Again, for us to break out of the fog, we need some kind of big wind or a storm to come on in. We finally have that, not this weekend, but potentially next weekend. We could finally see some wet weather moving on in just before Christmas, and we could finally scour the fog out. It's not really going to bring us any sunshine. We just replace the fog with rain, so yeah, we may not see very much sunshine for the month of December. But at least we'll see our visibilities improve somewhat. But until that happens, yeah, we're still stuck in the clouds, the gray weather, and a lot of 40s out there. We may see an occasional 50 here or there, low temperatures staying in the 40s, but for the most part, the cool weather sticking around for a while, the clouds sticking around for a while as well, until we finally get towards next weekend, we might see some rain finally moving on in.